Hey guys, it's LSuperSonicQ here with episode number 2 of the Then and Now series, in which we take a look at my clay models from when I began to sculpt a certain character to the present day sculpt. This episode is going to cover Link, as was suggested. So, something I want to clear up first, and that's how I want to make these different than the in-depth series episodes. So, when I make these episodes, the Then and Now series, I really want the clay models I pick to show the evolution of my clay. And there are some characters in some series like Star Fox and Metroid that the models don't really exactly show an evolution because, to use Star Fox as an example, what I did is the first time I sculpted Fox, I sculpted a fox, waited another few years, sculpted an entirely different style fox, waited another few years, and then sculpted a third entirely different style fox. And you could actually see that if you watch some of my in-depth series episodes. It doesn't really show evolution points, and it rather shows just like complete reboots of how I would sculpt the character, especially if I was to sculpt one from one game, one from an entirely different game, and then one from an entirely different game from those other two. It just has a completely different look. But as I showed with the Sonic episode, and as I want to show with this Link episode and future episodes, is the characters and the models I pick. I really want to show the change in how the sculpt of one character, in some cases, more than one sculpt from one specific type of game, really evolves over time. Which is kind of cool for me too, because I can see how I've evolved and grown on a character and how I sculpt them and improved as a sculptor over, years and years of time, rather than just waiting a long time to sculpt the character, sculpting them for the first time after a long time, and it just naturally looking different because, of course, over time, not practicing, it's going to look completely different. So that's the little intro about this series. And yeah, I kind of just decided to film this today because it was just one of those days where I felt like filming a video. And I don't want this series to die out in terms of obscurity and kind of just get forgotten, as some of my other series may seem like they've done. So we're going to look at my Link models. I think we're going to get 3 parts out of this, 2 or 3 parts. But let's start. So these are in chronological order, and the first one that I want to show off is one that I sculpted way back when I was playing Ocarina of Time on the GameCube with the Zelda Collector's Disc that came with my GameCube. And just like my video game skills back then, my clay skills naturally, being experienced to those things for the first time definitely showed, and it definitely shows in this model. So this was my first Link, which I think I've only showed in one other video before. And to say the least, he's really crude. Just a really general human-looking shape with those certain features that would make you say this is Link, but it doesn't really, exemplify how Link would look per se. I have the hat going on here, which again, that's something that would make this look like Link. And the boots and the gloves and stuff like that. But there's just something that, doesn't exactly look like him. The hair is not really like Link's hair would be. In fact, this is just a little piece over the top, and he doesn't even have any on the back. And there's, it doesn't even, go all the way behind his ears or anything like that. And the face is just really, really simple. I mean, it's a good model for, being sculpted 7 years ago, but just overall, it was definitely a rough start, a kind of generic start. But we all got to start somewhere, and this is where I happen to start with Link. So, aspects of him definitely would make its way into future models, more or less. I think as we progress, the models that the second, and third, and fourth ones are influenced a little bit more. But that was first Link from Ocarina of Time era, sculpted from Ocarina of Time in mind. The next Link happened a couple years later, and that was this one, which again is from Ocarina of Time, yet holds many differences than the first one. The first one that I want to point out is probably the most obscure, but I think it kind of tells the most, and that's in the color. If you notice for that Link over there, the colors aren't exactly right. The hair is like a neon yellow, and the green is a green that I don't even think you can get in clay styles anymore. But this Link is really color coordinated. While it might not be exactly like the graphic or the artwork of the game's color, I'm really consistent with it, and at least for me, I can tell that I really tried to stay, as detail authentic as I could. So the color alone, like I said, I kind of just explained, it makes its own statement. But aside from that, the other point I wanted to make was in the face, which is something that Link lacked. I think the face on this one is a lot better. The hair looks a lot more Link authentic, and just the overall, the overall face is something in this model that I think is what makes it look so good. Because I've even mentioned before about how the body is kind of small, and it doesn't exactly look that good. But aside from that, the face is definitely what will influence future models in terms of this. In addition, something new on this one that one didn't have is the addition of the sword and the shield. For that first Link, what I did is I kind of went along like a playset type format, and I made a bunch of different like accessories, like an arrow and a heart container and a sword and a shield separately. That I was like, oh, Link has to go pick this up and go find the sword and the shield and stuff. But this one, I already pretty much made him equipped with that. So that is also a difference that is influenced future models. So those are the first two, and the first one decided to fall over, but I started back up. And now the next one kind of takes those two again, going along the evolution points, and definitely, shows some pros and cons. And it's this Link which was sculpted a couple years later. I would say between these two was a few years, in between that one and this one was a couple years. That'd probably be a reasonable assumption. The first thing I want to point out, though, how I said this one had cons, is in the face. I think that face is not really that good, and also the sword and the shield aren't really that good. They're really small. But notice that the two worst parts of this model were the two best parts of that one. So what I think kind of happened there is I became essentially secure enough where I didn't need to spend that much time sculpting the face and the sword and the shield and stuff, because I knew that I had done really good before, so I kind of got away with rushing it and not making it look as good for this model. But the thing that I wanted to point out in this model, aside from the colors getting a little bit better and the additional detail like the cuffs on the boots and stuff, is the body, which the second one, lacked. This body looks a lot better. It's a lot more in proportion, and it overall just complements the head a little bit better, which is why I think, looking at this model as a whole, it doesn't really look that bad, is because the body complements the head. But, at this point, the body was something that I had begun to develop really well. And take that head, this body, and just the overall, I guess you could say size of that one, because all these ones stay in pretty good size with each other. And, you have the formula for a potentially really great Link model all around. The last one I want to talk about for this episode, though, potentially contradicts all that stuff, but it does it in its own way, and as a result, again, shows evolution, which I've been saying a lot. And it's Link from the, dare I say it, cancelled Brawl set. But what's different about this Link that I just pointed out in those three models is that his size. Link is chibi here, and he's pretty much stayed the same size for, however many years this was. But there's something in that is really significant, and that's because I've taken the really great sculpt of the head. I think that this is a really great head sculpt. It looks really good. I've always liked it, especially in the hair. I just think the hair looks really good. And this signature hat swoop, which you'll see for most of my Link models from this point on, I took that. I took the body from that one, which I know it's cheap and stuff, but it looks really proportionate with the head. And from both of those ones, I managed to get the sword and the shield looking good and on Link. And I guess to say something about that one is it was the starting point, and I mentioned that I guess the proportion was really good for that one, and I stayed consistent. But it's because I stayed consistent and I knew what I was doing that I was able to get Link this small and still look that good. So all those attributes considered, and we get a really small, chibi, great-looking Link model from Brawl. And this is probably around the same time as that, I would say, probably a couple years later, maybe. But essentially, those are the first 4 evolution clay models of Link. And as I said, all of them contributed different factors to the end result currently right there. So thanks for watching part 1, guys. Part 2 will continue this, and we might even get into a part 3, which I think we will. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next part.